In 2021, Kimi Raikkonen will be going into his 19th season in Formula 1, and when you look at his career stats, they are absolutely stacked to say the least. 21 Grand Prix wins, 103 podiums, 18 pole positions, 46 fastest laps, and 1,863 career points. And he also currently holds multiple driver records for the most Grand Prix starts, the most Grand Prix entered, the most total career race finishes, and the most fastest laps in a single season. And just to add on top of all of that, he has also driven for legendary teams and some of the most legendary names in Formula 1 like McLaren, Lotus, and Ferrari twice. So yeah, not exactly a bad Formula 1 career. But what I wanted to talk about in this video is something that I've seen many people ask both online and even in my comment sections. Given that he is going into his 19th season and just seems to come back year after year, does Kimi Raikkonen still deserve to be in Formula 1? What is he still doing in the sport, especially with so much young talent in the wings waiting for their chance at the sport? And also, what is his future in Formula 1 beyond 2021? Is he gonna stay? Is he gonna go? Or is he just going to race forever? In terms of Kimi's current deal with Alfa, he is coming into the final year of his contract, and at some point during 2021, both Kimi and Alfa Romeo will have to consider as to whether or not Kimi will return in 2022. And even now, before the season has even started, the thought of Kimi returning for yet another season is just unimaginable, and it's a testament to his longevity and motivation to still want to be in F1 at this stage of his career. When you think about Kimi's longevity, yes, the numbers are the thing that stands out, but it's also crazy to think about how many different types of cars across different aero and engine regulations he's actually driven as well. From the small and nimble V10 monsters, then moving into the V8 engine era, then the wider wings and simpler aero cars of 2009 onwards, then the smaller early hybrid cars of 2014 onwards, then the current wider and bigger hybrid cars that we've had since 2017, and if he continues in 2022, then he will also race in the new generation of ground effect hybrid cars as well. I mean, talk about having experience in Formula 1. But there is no doubt that with every year that Kimi remains in F1, the question that comes into most people's heads, as well as mine, is why is he still here? What does he still have to prove? And is he keeping younger drivers from getting their chance to get into Formula 1? Now, in terms of his motivation, in his classic Kimi style, he has already made it crystal clear in terms of why he is still in Formula 1.
It's more like a hobby for me, so obviously I don't need to do it if I don't want.
So yes, I had to get that one in because I know that every single one of you would have spammed it in the comments, but clearly he is motivated because he just loves racing, and it seems like for him it's not about chasing a better spot up the grid or scoring more points or maybe even scoring podiums again in the future. It's just about the feeling of being able to still compete in Formula 1 Grand Prix, racing with the fastest cars on the planet. But what about the next generation of young drivers who are also looking to make their way into Formula 1? The most important thing is to keep things in context and not make it out like Kimi is keeping every single young driver out of F1 and it's all Kimi's fault, because obviously that is just ridiculous. In reality, the only drivers that Kimi is potentially keeping out of Formula 1 are the Alfa Romeo Sauber drivers and the Ferrari Academy drivers. However, even then, Alfa don't have any young drivers that are even eligible to race in F1, and when it comes to Ferrari, Callum Eilert and Robert Schwartzman are the only drivers that were even potentially eligible for this season. However, even then, Kimi isn't doing anything wrong because his seat has nothing to do with the Ferrari young drivers. The driver situation at Alfa Romeo is very clear. One seat is controlled by the team itself, and the other is controlled in part by Ferrari, and so if anything, it's Antonio Giovinazzi who is the man in the way of younger talents coming through. Kimi is just a steady and consistent driver that Alfa Romeo themselves have decided to keep on because regardless of who is in that second seat, Kimi is a known quantity who still delivers. But when people say that Kimi is keeping younger drivers out of F1, the truth is that he's not. It's Alfa and Ferrari themselves who are, by choosing to keep someone like Giovinazzi instead of promote a driver like Eilert, who many people, myself included, think should be on the F1 grid. And on the subject of Kimi and Gio, the most important thing that needs to be said when people talk about whether or not Kimi deserves to be on the grid is this: he has been comfortably the faster, more consistent, and better overall driver over the past 2 years. And this is something that a lot of people are choosing to ignore. When people say that Raikkonen has had his time and that he's too old and should leave F1, his performances certainly don't show that, because if anything, the questions have to be pointed at Gio, being that he has still not been able to beat an aging Kimi Raikkonen for the past 2 seasons. And then there is the age argument itself. Now, to me, age has always been a bit of a pointless metric, so when you hear people say that Raikkonen is too old to be in F1, or even with Alonso returning at the age of 38 that he is too old, what does that actually have to do with their ability to perform on track? All drivers, regardless of age, need to be judged by their performances and not their age. Now, of course, I'm not saying that age isn't a factor, because obviously drivers do get slower as they get older, but it shouldn't be the default argument that people always run to, especially if a driver is delivering the results on track against younger drivers. Another reason why I'm not a fan of this argument is because I could easily flip it and say, what was Max doing in F1 at the age of 17? What was Lance Stroll doing in F1 at the age of 18? And why did McLaren hire Lando Norris when he was only 19? Those 3 drivers I just named just so happen to be the 3 youngest drivers to start a F1 Grand Prix. And while some people at the time questioned as to whether or not teenagers as young as 17 or 18 should even be in a sport like F1 in the first place, that argument in the end is completely irrelevant, because despite their age, when they got into F1, they immediately delivered and silenced all the critics that were using their age against them. Verstappen became the youngest race winner in the history of the sport, Lance Stroll scored a podium and qualified on the front row in his rookie season, and Lando Norris became the youngest driver in McLaren's history to score a podium. So my argument is, if those drivers performed at the ages they did and were never again questioned to be too young, then why do people use Raikkonen's age as an argument against him if he is still outperforming teammates and is still able to not only produce good results, but also be the #1 driver for Alfa Romeo even at the age of 41? I'm someone who doesn't really care about the age of any driver, to be honest, and Raikkonen is a prime example. I don't care how old he is, I care about what he is able to achieve on track and how much he can extract out of the package that he is given. And from what I saw in 2020, although Raikkonen isn't a top midfield driver anymore, he is more than capable in the right car to fight for regular points. And that is my point. A driver shouldn't be judged by their age, they should be judged by their production and what they're able to achieve in the cars that they are given relative to their teammate and the rest of the field. So this is why in the case of Kimi Raikkonen, I'm not saying there are not better drivers out there that could replace him and do a better job, and viewers of the channel will know that I actually don't rate the Alfa Romeo driver lineup that highly anyway, but for Kimi himself, he has beaten his teammate 2 years in a row, and even compared to the rest of the grid, he is not ridiculously out of place and out of his depth. If anything, I think the fact that Alfa Romeo last year were so far behind the midfield and closer to the Williams, that was the biggest thing that held him back. When you actually looked and watched Kimi during the races, he was usually ahead of both Williams, both Haas, and even his teammate, and strangely spending most of his time fighting with Vettel in the Ferrari on the fringes of the points. So, do I think Kimi Raikkonen still deserves to be on the grid? Yes, absolutely. Until he is beaten by a teammate and genuinely looks like the weakest link in a team and out of place compared to the other drivers on the grid, I don't see why he needs to go if he is still performing at a high enough level. Someone needs to beat him and prove that his time is over instead of people saying it is without the results to back that up. Now, in terms of the question, is it time for Kimi to move on and perhaps let another young driver or even a previous F1 driver who deserves a second chance and possibly could do a better job like a Nico Hülkenberg or a Kevin Magnussen? That is a completely different question. I feel like Kimi has proved everything he needs to prove. He is a world champion, one of the best of his era, and even in his final years, he's never looked out of place and he has been a quality driver and team leader right up until the end, which is exactly what a career spanning 20 years deserves. So guys, there you go. That is my video on Kimi Raikkonen. Now let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below, because Kimi is always a very interesting character to talk about, and let me know your thoughts on the video. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I totally understand that some people just maybe think that he shouldn't be in Formula 1, even though he is still doing a good enough job. There is a natural progression in Formula 1 where the older drivers should leave and let the next generation take over, but at the same time, from Kimi's point of view, if he wants to stay racing and he is beating his teammates, in my opinion, he has every right to. So again, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. I can't wait to see what you guys think. If you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop it a like and smash that subscribe button as well to support me and support the channel as well. We are on the road to 100k, so yeah, can't wait to get there, hopefully in 2021. Anyway guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.